After Daniel died, I stopped sleeping on the left side of the bed. I didn't make that decision intentionally. It just happened. One night, I rolled over to his side out of habit and felt the cold. The next night, I didn't. That whole first month felt like walking underwater. Everything was muffled: light, sound, time. My 7-year-old son, Owen, seemed to float in that same strange space with me. But the difference was, he still looked up. He'd ask questions like, "Do you think Dad watches me when I'm at school?" Or, "If Dad could hear one song right now, which one do you think he'd choose?" He still believed in something bigger. In connection. Me? I was just trying to get through each day without breaking down in the toothpaste aisle. I'm 34. Widowed. That word always felt distant, like something from an old novel or a news segment. But now it sits in the center of every form I fill out. Every thought. Every plan I never wanted to make. We live in New Mexico, just outside Santa Fe. I work as the head of marketing for a small outdoors brand. Not glamorous, but steady. My income, plus the life insurance payout from Daniel's accident, $310,000, meant Owen and I wouldn't drown. Not financially, at least. Emotionally, that's a different story. The people who helped the most weren't the ones I expected. Daniel's parents, Carol and Peter, they've been unbelievable. Loving. Present. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Carol picks Owen up from school. They have this ritual where she brings him a cookie in a little paper bag, and he pretends to guess the flavor like it's a blind taste test. He's got a real palate, Peter jokes. And it's not just help. It's love. Real, warm, unshakable love. No strings attached. I wish I could say the same about my own parents. Frank and Marilyn live in Phoenix, about 6 hours away. We're not close, not emotionally, at least. My sister Dana was always the favorite. Straight A student. Cheer captain. Did cotillion, whatever the hell that means. Me? I was the quiet one. The old soul. The kid who read too much and asked too many questions. Which sounds charming until you realize that, in my family, that meant I was too much. Too much feeling. Too many opinions. Too many needs. That dynamic never changed, even after I became a mom. In fact, it somehow got worse. Dana has 3 kids. All perfectly behaved, meaning they sit quietly on their tablets and don't interrupt adult conversations. My son, he's curious, talkative, sensitive in a way that sometimes surprises even me. A week before Christmas, I took Owen to visit my parents. I was working late that week, and Carol had a doctor's appointment, so I asked my mom if she could help. She agreed, but with the enthusiasm of someone being handed jury duty. When I picked him up that evening, he was quiet. That's never a good sign. In the car, I asked, "Everything okay, bud?" He hesitated, then said, "Grandma told me to stop talking so much." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "What were you talking about?" I asked how the big clock worked, and why it was ticking weird. I guess it was annoying. He stared out the window. His reflection looked too grown up for 7. Later that night, I called my mom. "Hey, was something wrong with Owen today?" I asked, keeping my voice even. She sighed like I'd asked her to run a marathon. "He just talks nonstop, Rachel." I had a headache. "He doesn't know when to stop." "He's 7, I said quietly. "He's supposed to ask questions." "Well, Dana's kids never act like that. They're polite." It felt like she reached through the phone and slapped me. I hung up shortly after. No yelling. No drama. Just that familiar ache in my chest. It's the same one I've had since I was 10, watching Dana get a bike for her birthday while I got a cardigan 2 sizes too big. A few days later, my mom invited us for dinner. Lasagna. My favorite, which instantly made me suspicious. She only makes it when she wants something. That might sound paranoid, but history repeats. I brought a bottle of wine. Owen carried a gift he'd wrapped himself for Grandma. A glitter-covered paper star with crooked edges and his name in shaky letters. Dinner started fine. Dana and her husband Ben were already there. The kids were zombified on tablets. My dad asked about work, oddly interested in our holiday campaign. My mom kept smiling. Too much. And then came the question. "So," she said casually, slicing into her lasagna, "how much was the life insurance?" I blinked. My fork hovered midair. "Why?" I asked. "We're just curious," my dad added. "You know, family helps family." I felt my cheeks flush. "It was $310, I said. "But most of it's in savings. For Owen. College. Or a home someday." My mom's eyes lit up in a way I didn't like. "Well, that's wonderful," she said sweetly. But you should think about the present. About the family. You could really help out right now. There it was. The favor wrapped in guilt. I looked down at my plate. My appetite vanished. I don't want to talk about money, I said quietly. The room went still. Dana cleared her throat and changed the subject. But the tension lingered, thick and sour like curdled milk. Later, as I buckled Owen into the car, I noticed he'd left his star on the counter. I started to go back for it, then stopped. Something in me said, don't. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. I knew my parents would push, that they'd find a way to make my stability feel like a burden. But I didn't know how far they'd go, not yet. That was just the beginning. A week later, my phone rang again. It was my mom. She opened with that voice. You know, the one, syrupy sweet, like she'd just baked cookies instead of weaponizing passive aggression for decades. Sweetheart, she said. We're having a little dinner this Sunday. Just family. Dana, Ben, the kids. Uncle Greg's coming, too. You and Owen should definitely be there. I hesitated. Everything in me wanted to say no. But I didn't. I said we'd come. I don't know what part of me still hoped they'd prove me wrong. Maybe the part that never quite stopped being 7 years old and desperate to be liked. When Sunday came, Owen was excited. He always is, even if they let him down over and over. He wore the blue button-up he picked out himself. He calls it his fancy explorer shirt, and carried another handmade gift for Grandma. This time, a glittery snowflake made of popsicle sticks. We were just about to leave when my phone rang again. It was my mom. Hey, honey, she said breezily. About tonight, we're doing something a little different. Just adults. No kids this time. I froze. What? Just thought it'd be fun to have an evening for grown-ups, you know? Wine, good conversation. Elegant. My stomach dropped. Mom, it's Christmas Eve. I know, she said, as if I'd reminded her it was garbage day. Just drop Owen off with Carol and Peter for a few hours. They love having him. You only need to be here at 7. I hung up without saying goodbye. Owen was in the living room, tying a ribbon around the snowflake. He looked up and smiled. Should I bring the peppermint cookies too? My throat closed. Hey, buddy, I said gently. There's been a change of plans. I told him he'd be hanging out with Carol and Peter that night. He didn't question it, just nodded and grabbed his coat. But on the way to their house, he got quiet. Carol greeted us at the door with hugs and warmth, like always. She didn't ask questions, just ushered Owen into the kitchen where Peter was already whipping cream for hot cocoa. I stood there for a second, key still in my hand, trying to decide whether to just stay. I should have stayed. Instead, I drove to my parents' house. The moment I pulled up, I knew something was wrong. The driveway was full. The porch was lit up. And through the window, I saw kids. Not one or two. A dozen, maybe more. Running around in paper crowns and reindeer antlers. Dana's kids. Cousins. Babies. Toddlers. Every child in the family was there. Except mine. I walked in and stood frozen in the doorway. The noise. The laughter. The smell of ham and cinnamon candles. And the undeniable presence of children everywhere. Aunt Monica spotted me and waved. Rachel, where's Owen? Don't tell me he's sick. I couldn't speak. Brian's little boy ran past me with a toy helicopter. Dana's youngest screamed in delight as wrapping paper flew into the air. And there was my mother, standing calmly by the tree, smiling as if everything was perfectly normal. I crossed the room and gently pulled her aside into the hallway. Mom, I said, my voice low and shaky. You told me this was adults only. You specifically said no kids. She adjusted the brooch on her sweater and gave me that tight little smile she reserves for moments she's about to lie. Well, this is different. How? I asked. There are children all over the house. They're just quieter, she said, with a shrug. They know how to behave. Sit still. Not interrupt conversations. You know how Owen is. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, but cleanly. How Owen is. I repeated. You mean curious? Thoughtful? A child who asks questions because he cares. She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. Rachel, don't make this into a thing. It's just a small difference, that's all. I laughed, but it came out sharp and bitter. From the dining room, a loud crash echoed. I peeked around the corner and saw Dana's middle kid standing on a chair, trying to juggle deviled eggs. One flew into Aunt Monica's lap. She shrieked. Everyone laughed. I turned back to my mother. Yeah, I said flatly. Super well behaved. Her expression hardened. Children will be children. But Owen, it's like he's trying to be an adult. He makes people uncomfortable. I stared at her. At the woman who never once sat through one of Owen's school projects. Who never asked about the books he loves. Who ignored every hand-painted card he made for her birthday. And I realized something painful and true. She didn't just prefer Dana's kids. She wanted mine to be someone else entirely. I'm leaving, I said quietly. My mom blinked. Suit yourself. But don't forget to leave your gifts under the tree. I stared at her, stunned. No, I said. I think you've got enough. I walked back into the living room, heart pounding. The room was still noisy music, laughter, kids shrieking. But I cleared my throat and waited. Eventually, voices quieted. Faces turned toward me. Some of you asked why Owen isn't here tonight, I began. Why he's not running around with the other kids. Why I came alone. Dana stepped forward. Rachel, maybe this isn't. No, I cut in. Let me finish. I took a shaky breath. I didn't bring Owen because my mother told me not to. She called me last week and said it was an adults-only Christmas. That Owen would be out of place. That he asks too many questions. People looked confused. Uncomfortable. Aunt Monica frowned. But she invited all the grandkids. Exactly, I said. She invited all the other grandkids. A wave of whispers rippled through the room. And that's not even the worst part, I added, voice growing stronger. A few nights ago, Dana told me she was sending our parents $500 a month to help with expenses. She suggested I send $1,200 since I had more flexibility now. You know, because my husband died. Ben turned sharply. What? He said to Dana. She looked like she wanted the floor to open and swallow her whole. You said we couldn't afford to replace the tires, he added. You said we were broke. Dana didn't respond. I looked at her. Go ahead. Tell them. She swallowed hard. I never sent anything. My mom looked like she'd been slapped. They told me to say it, Dana said quickly. So Rachel would feel guilty. So she'd help. A silence fell over the room. Not just quiet. Heavy silence. The kind that tastes like metal. I saw the recognition dawning on people's faces. The pieces clicking into place. And I realized. I didn't need to keep talking. The truth had done all the work. For a second, maybe two, it was completely still. You could almost hear the snow outside hitting the window panes. Ben was the first to move. He stepped away from Dana like she'd just confessed to something worse than a lie, which, honestly, she had. He stared at her. You told me you were helping them, he said. You said we had to cut back on groceries because you were sending money to your parents. Dana opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I told Jake no birthday party this year, Ben added, quieter now. And you just lied? To all of us. His voice didn't rise. That's what made it worse. He turned to my parents next. You guilt your daughter, a widow, into sending you over $1,000 a month, and you let her believe she was just doing her part? No one answered. Dana tried to touch Ben's arm, but he pulled back. I'm taking the kids, he said. We'll stay at my parents' house tonight. Ben, please, Dana whispered. But he didn't respond. Just walked past her to gather coats and shoes. The kids looked confused, but they followed him without a word. When the door closed behind them, the room didn't go back to normal. It cracked. Uncle Greg stood up, muttering, "This is disgusting," as he grabbed his jacket. Aunt Monica followed. Then Paul. Then Brian. It wasn't dramatic, just steady and relentless. One by one, people got up and left. I stood there and watched my parents lose control of the room they always tried to stage manage. No raised voices. No furniture thrown. Just quiet judgment. Long stares. Doors closing. It hit harder than any screaming match ever could. Eventually, it was just me, my mother, and my father. My mom finally turned to me. You didn't have to humiliate us, she said. That made me laugh, an ugly, exhausted sound. I didn't humiliate you, I said. You did that all by yourselves. She crossed her arms, but I didn't care. My dad stayed silent. I don't know if it was shame or strategy. Probably both. I turned to go, then hesitated. I looked around their perfectly decorated living room, the pristine tree, the matching stockings, the fake warmth of it all. I spent years trying to earn something from you, I said softly. Love. Approval. Basic respect. But you know what? I'm done trying. My mother didn't answer. She just looked away. I walked out without saying goodbye. Outside, the air hit me like a slap, freezing and sharp. I took a deep breath that felt like it filled my entire body. I got in my car, started the engine, and just sat there for a moment. Hands on the wheel. Lights blinking. Then I opened my banking app. I scrolled to the automatic transfer labeled F&M monthly, and I canceled it. No drama, no rage, just one tap. It was quiet and final and unbelievably freeing. When I got back to Carol and Peter's, their porch light was still on. Through the window, I could see Owen sitting at the kitchen table, painting a snowman onto a paper plate. Peter was beside him, cutting out stars from tinfoil. Carol opened the door before I even knocked. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded. My throat was too tight to speak. I stepped inside, dropped my purse on the bench, and let out a breath I'd been holding since I was a kid. That night, we stayed up making hot chocolate and laughing over the worst Carol lyrics. Owen told Peter that he wanted to invent chocolate that sings, and instead of brushing it off, Peter said, "Okay, well, what's your prototype?" That's the moment it really sank in. What love feels like when it doesn't have to be bought. It's not grand gestures. It's someone asking how your day was and really listening to the answer. It's helping a kid glue googly eyes on a snowman at 9:30 p.m. because he thinks it matters. It's a kitchen full of warmth, not performance. After Owen went to bed, I sat with Carol by the fireplace. She didn't ask questions, just poured me a glass of wine and handed me a blanket. We watched the lights on the tree flicker in silence. Eventually, she said, "You did the right thing." "I know," I whispered. But then I added, "It still hurts." Carol nodded, her voice soft. "It's not supposed to feel good right away. It's just supposed to stop feeling wrong." I leaned my head back and stared at the ceiling. That was it. It didn't feel good yet, but it didn't feel wrong anymore. And that was enough for now. The days between Christmas and New Year's passed like a soft blur. Not in a bad way. In a way that felt like coming down from something high and toxic. Like the ringing in your ears finally fades and all that's left is quiet. Owen and I didn't go back to our place right away. We stayed with Carol and Peter. At first, it was just until things settled down, but no one said when that would be. No one pushed. Owen spent hours building Lego castles with Peter, who treated every build like it was an architectural masterpiece. Carol taught him how to make cinnamon knots from scratch, and now he insists on making them every morning, even though he always forgets the salt. Every evening, we played board games at the kitchen table, or watched silly movies under 4 blankets, or sat doing absolutely nothing except existing in the same space safely. It was the first time in months I didn't feel like I was bracing for something. Then, one morning, December 31st, the doorbell rang. I was pouring coffee. Owen was still in his pajamas, lying belly down on the floor drawing a comic about a detective dog named Captain Barkingon. Carol was humming to herself in the next room. I froze, because something about that knock felt familiar. I looked out the front window, and my stomach immediately tightened. It was my parents, standing on the porch. Both of them, dressed nicely, holding a large, shiny box with an oversized red bow. Carol appeared beside me without a word. She peeked out, sighed softly, then touched my arm. "You want me to handle it?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, I've got it." I opened the door just wide enough to step outside and close it behind me. "Rachel," my mom said, her voice soft, "we wanted to see you before the new year. And bring something for Owen." She held out the gift box like it was some kind of peace treaty. My dad stayed quiet, his hands shoved deep in his coat pockets. I didn't take the gift. "Why are you here?" My mom blinked, surprised by how calm I sounded. "We wanted to apologize," she said. "We know we hurt you. We just want to fix things." "Now?" I asked. "After everything? After the lies? After you shut Owen out of Christmas and tried to guilt me out of my husband's life insurance?" My mom's smile faltered. My dad still hadn't said a word. "I know we made mistakes," she said. "We just want our family back. Please." I stared at them. The people who raised me, who taught me, not with words, but with actions, that love was something you earned by being small, agreeable, quiet. I used to think I could win them over with enough effort. Now, I just felt tired. "Are you sorry?" I asked slowly. "Because you understand what you did? Or because everyone else found out?" They exchanged a quick look. And there it was my answer. "I think you should go," I said. "We're okay. You don't need to worry about us." My mother's face tightened. "But we're family." "No," I said, taking a step back. "We're related." "That's not the same thing." She reached out like she wanted to touch my arm, but I didn't move. After a moment, she lowered her hand. "We just thought," she began, but didn't finish. I nodded toward the driveway. "Take care." They stood there for another second, like they were waiting for a miracle, then turned and left. I watched them walk to their car, the box still in my mother's hands. As they pulled away, I felt something strange. Not relief. Not sadness. Just stillness. It was done. When I stepped back inside, Carol didn't ask what happened. She just handed me my coffee like it was waiting for me all along. Later that afternoon, I told Owen we'd be going home in a few days. His first response was, "Can Captain Barkingham come too?" "Obviously," I said. "He's the brains of the operation." We packed slowly. No rush. Carol insisted we take extra cinnamon knots for the road, even though the road was only 20 minutes. That night, we stayed up late, all of us. We watched the fireworks on TV and counted down to midnight. Owen made it to 11:42 before falling asleep on the couch, mouth open, fingers still sticky from marshmallows. I carried him upstairs and tucked him into bed. Then I stood there for a while, just watching him sleep. The softness of his face, the quiet rise and fall of his chest, the little snore he inherited from Daniel that only comes out when he's in deep, dream-heavy sleep. My chest ached. Not in a bad way. In the way that reminds you just how much you love someone. How badly you want to protect that soft little heartbeat from everything cruel in the world. Even if that cruelty wears a familiar face. Back downstairs, Peter raised his glass to me. "To doing hard things," he said. I clinked my glass against his. "To choosing better." We drank in silence. That was the moment I realized. I had chosen better. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not hoping, not negotiating. Just living. Fully. For myself. For Owen. January felt different. Not lighter exactly, but clearer. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not on texts that never came. Not on apologies I didn't believe. I'd stopped hoping my parents would wake up one day and suddenly see me and Owen for who we are. And once I let go of that hope, everything else got easier. Owen and I settled back into our place, slowly. The first night home, he insisted we set up his cardboard rocket ship in the middle of the living room again. I almost said no. I was tired. It was late. But then I saw his face. That excitement. That hope. We set it up right there between the couch and the coffee table. He climbed inside with a flashlight and a granola bar and said, "Okay, I'll be back from the moon in 20 minutes. I smiled. "Bring snacks." He grinned. "Only if they're moon approved." We built new rhythms. Saturday mornings at the library. Wednesday waffles for dinner. Sunday nights with Carol and Peter, a tradition that quietly became something sacred. They never said they wanted to become our family in every sense. They just showed up, over and over, with car rides, soup, patience. One night in February, Owen called Carol Grandma without thinking. She didn't react, didn't make it a moment. She just answered, "Yes, honey," like she'd been waiting for it the whole time. And I knew in that second, we were where we belonged. Sometimes I'd catch myself wondering if my parents were still angry. If Dana's marriage had survived the fallout. If anyone in that house ever looked at Owen's forgotten paper snowflake and felt anything at all. But I never wondered for long. Because none of that mattered now. I wasn't carrying it anymore. Instead, I carried small things. A photo of Owen in Daniel's old flannel shirt, reading Captain Barkingham comics under a blanket. The smell of cinnamon rolls on Carol's stove. The way Peter always stood a little too close to the oven like he didn't trust it not to burn the lasagna. Little pieces of a life that actually felt like life. One spring afternoon, Owen and I were walking home from the park. The air smelled like wet grass and sunscreen. He was babbling about wormholes, not the science kind, but actual holes made by worms, and then he suddenly stopped. "Mom," he said, "how come we don't see Grandma Marilyn and Grandpa Frank anymore?" It caught me off guard. I thought about how to answer, then knelt beside him on the sidewalk. "You remember how we talk about safe people?" I asked. He nodded. "Like people who don't yell or make you feel bad inside?" "Yeah," I said. "Not everyone in your family is always safe like that. And it's okay to take space from people who don't make you feel good, even if they're related to you." He looked thoughtful for a minute. "Like when I stopped playing with Lucas because he always took my markers without asking?" "Exactly like that," I said. He seemed satisfied with the answer. Then added, "Carol always gives me my own markers. Even the good ones." "Yeah," I smiled. "She's pretty great." We kept walking. And that was it. No drama. No tears. Just space. Later that week, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address, but I knew the handwriting immediately, my mom's. I opened it slowly, standing at the kitchen counter. It was short. A weak apology. A few sentences about how they never meant to hurt me. How families go through hard things. An invitation to talk when I'm ready. I folded the letter and slipped it into a drawer I rarely open. I didn't need more words. They'd had all the time in the world to choose us. And they didn't. Now, I was choosing different. Better. One evening in April, we had a little barbecue at Carol and Peter's. Nothing fancy. Just burgers and potato salad and kids running barefoot through grass that needed mowing. Owen sat on the back porch, holding a magnifying glass over an anthill like he was a scientist. Peter crouched beside him, asking questions like Owen was the expert. I watched them for a long time, not saying anything. Then Carol touched my arm and said, "You're okay." It wasn't a question. I looked over at her and nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am." She smiled. "You know," she said, "I don't think Daniel would be surprised by the way you handled all this." I felt a lump rise in my throat. "Really?" She nodded. "He always said you were the strong one." I blinked hard. "He used to call you his compass," she added. "Said you kept him pointed in the right direction, even when he had no idea where he was going." I didn't know that. I wish I had. I looked back at Owen, still crouched with Peter, still completely, ridiculously himself. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt that thing I didn't think I'd ever feel again. Steady, like I was pointed in the right direction.